everyone, so this is Michi Hoyer from Avid Chronic Racing and I am live for the Sim Pit doing an episode of Formula Sim Racing 2017 car setup guide. It's not gonna be a specific setup guide for this particular car, but it's being a more general setup guide to what it's like setting up an FSR car. So I welcome you guys tonight. Hope you have some fun watching me building a set from scratch and yeah, being a race driver in Formula Sim Racing World Championship division. I want to show you in particular how I do start building my setups from scratch. So we enter this practice session in here. Session has not started yet. Not sure whether we're gonna do a full 1.5 hour session, depending on what's going on. But before we go out, we quickly have a look at the base setup, which will be 90 liters, what we're going to take out on track. As you can see, the current car has factory defaults. Looking at the general, here's the gearing, steering locks, pump, power coast and preload, so differential settings, front wing, rear wing, ref limiter, radiator size, we can put that to 3, brake map will be the engine brake. Looking at the suspension, the third spring up here, front spring or front suspension and the rear suspension in here. As you can see, there is no spring rate at the rear suspension, so the rear suspension is quite soft, yet needs to be fixed a lot in general setting up the car. Stock setup, that is. So this is the car from factory. It was the basic set for the 2017 season. Anti-roll bars, toe in, toe out. Oh, that's not toe out, but just toe in here on the front and the rear. Looking at the chassis, a little bit of caster setting, lateral weight distribution and the other weight distribution, forward, rearward. Looking at advanced, that's front tires, rear tires. Obviously those are the compounds are fixed to each other. Looking at cambers, brakes, we put that to 4 and obviously put maximal pedal force to the brakes. Keep minimum brake disc. As soon as the brakes don't wear too hard and you don't have any kind of trouble with the brakes going on, you want to have the brakes as thin as possible, because bigger brake discs mean obviously more weight. More weight needs to be carried through the corners, that puts more load on the tires. More weight means more friction from the rubber to the straight, so more top speed if you have less weight, obviously. But it's more down to cornering and cornering speeds. So we keep this as minimum. And what I usually do then is simply put prime to start working on a set, working on a good balance. And then we just go out and drive our first some kind of installation lap where we get used to the track. We need to get used to this little bump at the exit of the pits. That's probably just, yeah, because of the bad version of rFactor 2 here. And so we go out and make ourselves familiar with the track a little bit, which is, as in the description, Barcelona from this year's FSR race. And then we drive 1 or 2 laps to just look about general car behavior. Take it easy in the first lap, push it in the second lap, and then probably go to the pits without setting a lap time. From what I feel already is that the car is very twitchy. And throughout this entire setup process, I expect a series of questions from you guys, and feel totally free to just ask them if I get the chance, or be able to answer it. I will definitely do. Please don't go too deep into the details on what dampers do. Dampers are a very complicated area, and I have no really clue what's going on there sometimes, so I would not like to give you any advice which might be wrong in the end. Working with the dampers is always a lot of experimenting. Wow, the rear is so twitchy here. Yeah, Martin, I'm seriously streaming at 1:30 AM here in Germany. I know there are very many American people being up at the time right now watching, if not watching football. Anyway. Right, I do have a lot of understeer, and the car's very twitchy on throttle. And front left locking up into the hairpin, which means we should swap around the brake bias a lot. So the car is so twitchy in the back, it's incredible, and I know already what's the secret behind that. Just going back to the pits for our first setup changes. And on this particular car, and generally on any F1 car, downforce being not just produced by the front wing and the rear wing, but also being produced by the rake. That means the angle the car is driving on the ground. Red Bull, for example, traditionally races extremely high rake. In Monaco or at Singapore, they had the car like moving like this over the street, and what they literally do with that rake is generating downforce by the flowing air on the car, so to push the car further on the ground, also being held by the front and the rear wing, obviously. The second thing, apart from the wings, that generates downforce is the diffuser, and the diffuser works like the exact opposite of an airplane wing. The air flowing underneath the car, flowing underneath the chassis and the bodywear, being compressed between the bodywear and the ground, and obviously the velocity will create so much downforce you can't even imagine. And as you have seen in the final corner of that one lap I did, I lost the car because there was no rear end grip, and I lost it especially when going on throttle outside of the corners because the rear is still stiff. You often run into these packers, and packers are the some kind of travel stop for the suspension. So the suspension has a travel range of 5 centimeters due to the ride height, and rather than touching the ground, you want to hit the packers. However, you want to have a perfect suspension that you do not have to put in packers, and you don't have that out-bottoming on the street. So what we experiencing here in terms of the understeer, that's the reason of the packers at the front. I will keep them for now, but to show you the effect of packers in the back, as well as downforce being generated by the diffuser, I'm going to remove the packers to 0.5. And with that setting, I'm heading out again for now and put our first reference in terms of lap time. So Steam King, as you said you were visiting Germany, where do you actually come from? Because to that spoken Hockenheim ring, that's just an hour of drive for me from here, so around 110-120 kilometers. Still there's this massive amount of understeer still going on. You will see it especially through here, where go wide quite a lot. Currently I'm still running on stock wings, which is 42-41, but I do think that this is a little bit too much downforce for this kind of track. As I remember that I forgot to fix the brake bias on the setup menu. Now going through this final turn, as you can see, no oversteer whatsoever, so we can deliberately go full throttle on the main straight, hitting that limiter of the 7th gear. But this is yeah, still need some optimizing, and as you can see I need to lift off quite a lot from throttle. Still going wide. Would have been an invalid lap, that's for sure. But for now we just keep going, since we will improve that lap time anyway. Hey Francis, yeah, as soon as I'm gonna be finished, or tomorrow, I will definitely put up links into the descriptions where you find all the plugins I'm using here, which is Delta Best at the very top, and the track map plugin, which is the rest of it. So, and we finish our first flying lap with a 125.5. Tires on temperature now. Staying in here, staying valid. For those interested, I'm using a little bit of railroad. Railroad and rFactor 2 means actual grip, not just visual rubber laying down, but also physical grip being generated by it. In order to just make sure that all the setting changes will make the time difference in the setup or on the lap time, I've just put a standard version of this railroad on my local server here and put the railroad to static, so that the railroad doesn't evolve as long as I keep going on here. By that we just make sure that all the time gained on the lap time will certainly come from the setup, and obviously a little amount from driving as well, but mainly still just from the setup. Front left still tends to lock up, and this can well be seen in the tire wear that's being produced. If you look at the right hand side, on the top numbers bar, there we have the digit wear, and the front left is 3% more worn than all the other tires are. So that's a clear sign for the front left being either overused, which is a little bit true just by the track layout, but also because of the braking and the blocking wheel and locking up the front left. That's the second part of the story. As we set up a benchmark for further development with a 124.5. So we're going back to the pits. Certainly we'll work a little bit on the suspension. We'll work a little bit on the wings. Old, I think you're quite right. I was just able to talk to Sean like half an hour ago. So yesterday's show was a little bit, well, let's say it had a little bit of an influence of his today's feeling. I think that's certain. But to be fair, after such amount of drinking going on, who wouldn't have an influence today of that? So sure, gamer, what you mean by logical progression? I mean, I'm now doing sim racing for 12 years, and obviously I slowly worked myself up from down to the, don't want to say to the very top, but certainly to a certain amount of top. Right, so what we definitely know is that the gearing is too short, hence why we do 1 or even 2 clicks longer on the final, and to make better use of the first gear, which we definitely need out of the hairpins, we lengthen it a little bit. On the other side, we do know that we lack massive downforce at the front, so we remove the packers to 0.5. That will give us a lot better travel suspension range and will definitely help us throughout turn 3. Well, in real life you would start with a go-kart and then go up the things, or go up the ladder. In sim racing you can basically start with whatever you want, whatever suits you. I'm definitely an open wheeler driver, or I favorize open wheeler. I'm also racing GT cars sometimes, but mainly just open wheelers. And yeah, I mean, you run through a series of sessions, like you start all over from joining open lobbies on rFactor 1. So did I. I was joining open lobbies. At some point I got asked whether to join a private league. Then I raced in a private league. Then I joined another private league. And from that private league you start to create friendships and rivalry sometimes. More like friendships, to be fair. And you know, after that, 3 years later, one of those old friends from that private league said, "Hey, what about racing in FSR in the Ace division?" And well, that got me there, and from there on I started to do my own development so far. And yeah, currently racing where I am, I'm very proud. I'm very happy to be there, and hopefully you guys can some ways capitalize on that as well, as I'm trying to give some knowledge to the outside, because I'm often being asked, what you gonna do? I got that issue with the car. And in Avid Chronic Racing, the team where I'm racing in, we also got the Avid Chronic Racing Driving Academy, where we do videos like that, where we give advices like that, where we also have our setup guide, which is like a 70-page long guide to how improve the setup, how improve the car, how improve driving, and how improve yourself as a driver, on mental aspects, on physical aspects, stuff like that. Everything is very, very important going into sim racing, esports, and everything like that. I mean, you're looking into details in Motec, just like a Formula 1 team does. So you're also, when racing a full race, you're gonna be, you're gonna be facing a physical task, a physical adventure you need to deal with. So mental strength and physical strength is very important. And I have to say no to Sure Gamer, because iRacing, that's the way you do there. You go from the slower cars to the faster cars, but in rFactor 2 or Assetto Corsa, whatever sim or Simcade or whatever arcade game you want to join, you simply pick the car you like, you simply go, you practice, and at some point you're gonna be up the top, or you're gonna hit your limit there. And that's what racing is all about. Right, going back to the setup, we now have lengthened our gearbox, which enables us to go faster on the straight, and we have increased the downforce, or the front end grip, by letting the front suspension travel a lot more. Simultaneously, I will take down the wings a little bit, and then we go on again. Why I was decreasing the wings is that I think the racetrack itself favors lower wings, not too high wings, because there's quite some high-speed corners. When going through them fast enough, the downforce is still enough. Then you have this massive long straight here, where you actually need to have the good straight line speed to either not be attacked or be able to attack, because the track does not really have another point where you can attack or be attacked. So the main straight definitely being the straight to look at in terms of setup. So we might definitely lose out a little bit in this middle sector here, going from turn 6 to turn 8 or 9. That's 7, that's 8, that's turn 9. We may be even a little bit slower through 11 and 12. But we will see. I'm quite sure and confident that we will improve on our lap time. Maybe not on the first lap due to the cold, the potentially cold prime tires, which is the harder compound. There's still another option left that can be raced. But basically this prime just heats up as soon as you did your first timed lap. And now the car actually feels start floating. Or feels like floating a bit. Hitting 307 before, currently hitting 309 with the lower wings. Definitely losing a little bit out of power because of 7th gear. As you can see, despite the cold tires, we can go a little bit faster through that turn 3. That's all because of the suspension now being able to travel at the front. Still suffering from cold tires. To quickly answer the question of SimRacing rig, I do have head movement and all that stuff off, so all the vibrations I do see come from the car or the suspension or from the track. That's all the setup or all the feedback I do need. Right, now entering the second timed lap, which now should definitely be faster than what we did before, if not outbraking myself so heavily all the time. Right, coming down final corner, and we improved our lap time by just around 2/10, I think, 214 thousandths of a second, 124.3, currently hitting 17,400 in RPM. Now, I would say this is entirely perfect, because when you race against other drivers, you're gonna end up being in the slipstream. And then you just need a little bit of a margin to run in the slipstream and go faster than you would without. Therefore, the length of the 7th gear is not sure if it's really perfect, but it's just about being good. And yeah, El Bujo, you're absolutely right. Like, I would have loved to be a real racing driver, that's for sure. But my family hasn't been as rich as required, and obviously I haven't had the right childhood in order to be a good racing driver in the real life. So very early, being age 12 or 13, I looked at something different to operate on my passion on racing, and so I found out about sim racing, starting in F1 2002. Then going to rFactor 1 in 2005, and yeah, this is now where I am. Congratulations, SimRacing Rick, on winning that VEC there. I have driven VEC 2 or 3 years ago for 1 or 2 races or something. I know that our team is going to enter, or is currently still doing VEC in the LMP1, in Division 1, in Race Room 1. So that's definitely what we're looking for. Right, what I've now experienced in the car is that the front is still not responding enough. It's not turning enough. I would still say I do have understeer. Yet I don't think I'm going fast enough on the straight, so what I'm gonna do is decrease the wings by 1 click again. And in order to make the front rotation a little bit easier, I go 1 click lower on the rear wing. I don't want to deal with differential right now, because that will be the fine tuning at the end of this episode. If not, on the second episode of that then. Right, with the front being stiff, like that's really stiff here, you can go up to 191 Newton per millimeter. You want to definitely have it lower, so we come from here. From 129. We want to lower it to 104 for now. Having a look into that. And with those 2 changes, we now go out again and see if we can improve even further. I agree on the iRacing side of life that iRacing definitely has the best tracks, since they are laser scanned. I think that's for sure. On the other hand, I do think that rFactor 2 is about to yeah, improve its performance here. So I'm sure rFactor 2 will soon be one of the top-notch simulators. I mean, it is already physics-wise. I think physics-wise it's unbeatable at the minute. Yeah, but graphically and obviously track on the track side it could still improve. Right, getting in some temperature of the tires. So as a short rehearsal, we've lowered the wings. We pushed the aerodynamical balance a little bit more to the front. And we made the front suspension a lot softer, which should make it be able to go faster through the corners, just on the front. So that shifts the car balance itself also to the front. Which, as you can see, results in a more twitchy car again in the back, especially when entering the main straight. And we did 310 before, now doing 311 if I saw it right. Slowly getting there. And still got cold tires, hence why I'm a lot slower in the opening lap, turn 3. Car is a lot more twitchy again now. And I keep forgetting about adjusting the brake bias. Stupid me. Probably I won't think at it, because as soon as I turn it down in the car while racing, I feel like that it's been okay. And then I forget, I keep changing about it. Well, I mean, rFactor 2 is a third-party content moddable sim, so I mean, you would have to talk to FSR administration whether you'd be fine to use their physics. That's something I cannot decide. Needs to be decided by the technical directors of FSR. This was bad turn 1, turn 2, giving me a very bad drive through 3. Still, despite all this difference in the red, I still believe I can be purple at the end of the lap. Just because the setup now is so much better and so much more turning at the front. I will definitely gain a lot of time through the cornering sections. Here it hits some packers or some stiff thing, so I can't go faster through turn 9. But I will definitely be faster around here. I've not thought out braking myself. But as you can see on the virtual best time, it's a 124.130, so 170 thousandths to find there. Just need to make sure to hit this turn 1 and turn 2, and then have a good drive through 3. The car starts being too twitchy now again. and that makes me feel like we hit some kind of stiff suspension parts. It's gonna be so close.
That was a 1:24.
You gotta be kidding. Oh no, actually we improved our lap time. By just a tiny little bit. So that's the current potential of the car, 124 dead, even 123.991. A SimPit is currently watching, well actually the SimPit is actually driving since I'm official contributor to this channel, which I would like to thank Sean Cole very much. It's a pleasure to work for him and work with him together. And on the second hand, or on the second side, very friendly greetings from Sean. He's currently not in best shape, I think. Being a little bit exhausted from yesterday. Some people might even say he has a little hangover. But I'm sure he will ditch his nose into the stream for once. Thank you, Tom, for those words. Really appreciate it. Right, now looking into the setup, it's becoming more and more twitchy again, so we're definitely going into the right direction. Sure, gamer, no. You don't really have to. In Pro, you can file a team by yourself. In Ace, you can file a team by yourself. Only for WC, you do need a team license to compete in the World Championship division. So that's everything you basically need. Looking at the setup right now is that twitchy back definitely coming from a too less grip in the back from the diffuser because of the ride height. I still can reduce that to 4.5 and may even reduce it completely or may take out the packers completely. We will surely find out about that soon. What definitely keeps us hitting into the packers in the corners is the third spring packers. We're gonna lower them to 1.5 at the front, 1.5 in the back, and a tiny bit too much understeer being generated by a too stiff third spring. The third spring also, the softer it is, the more downforce is be generated, and obviously the more a little bit more grip in the front is generated. However, this third spring is not too sensitive on that. I have to say. And now I'm looking for something else. Something that could help us make the car a little bit more turning is put weight distribution. 2 clicks into the back. That enables the car to go a little bit faster around the front, and the car will be a little bit more oversteering maybe, but it also will be a lot better on traction, which helps us out of the final final corners and out of the hairpins. Martin, I do know hitting those third spring packers because first of knowledge. I mean, I've raced this mod now for an entire year. I've done a lot of Motec on it, and I do know how the packers feel. Like you feel the third spring packers more to be at the case into slow corners and out of acceleration, and the standard packers from the front and third spring you feel a lot more through high speed cornering, and that's why I just know, or I am just guessing at it. Obviously, I do not really know if I really hit them, but I feel like I'm hitting them, so I adjust it and therefore go either faster or slower. And we will surely find out on that soon. Yeah, Punisher, you're actually right. Meanwhile, on a G29 wheel. Got that on the Black Friday. Now checking whether those setup changes we did help on the lap time again and on general car balance. To ARB about the hybrid engines, I don't really know. I think no one really knows either, apart from Studio 397. They brought out the, I'm not sure whether it's published already, but they announced that they bring out the Formula E mod. And I think this Formula E mod will contain quite some basic knowledge and some basic physics engine to emulate hybrids and stuff. So definitely we'll have a look into that as soon as that comes out. Punisher, you may want to contact me on Facebook as soon as your G29 arrives, and I want to have a little talk with you about the pedal set then, and maybe be able to give you some advice there. Right, as you know, the first time lap is required for getting used to the new changes of the car and also getting some temperatures into the tires. This turn 9 feels so good, and you can already see on the top bar of the time delta that I made up some time, as I simply forgot again to change the brake bias, for God's sake. I'm sure me and Sean will find some time to tune up that BMW. Just need to be a little bit more patient, I think. Right, the car is a little bit twitchy in the back, but nothing too serious. I don't want to say it's easy to deal with it, but you rather want to have a little bit of oversteer in the car rather than understeer. Because against the understeer there's really nothing you can do about as a driver. Whereas the oversteer can be managed by yourself with the pedal work and steering input. So we improved the setup for this section, turn 9 straight to turn 10 by just a tenth. So that's definitely what's in the setup now. We go a tenth quicker there while going the same speed among all the other places of the track. Which sets us in 123.8.
23.84.
I still could need a little bit more grip from the suspension into turn 3. Although the same into turn 4, but we're running close to the limit of the car there, that's for sure. Yeah, you can trail brake for understeer, however that really takes a lot of tire life away from your rear tires. But looking into that, I would like to have a little bit more aggressive car when braking. So while still being on brakes, the car tends to understeer, especially into this corner, and have to be very slow into that corner as well. So I'm gonna go back to the pits and work on some other settings before going out again. El Bujo, it's more about you decide what you're gonna do by what you think what's gonna need it. So if you're like, I need to find a good example. Maybe just imagine in that turn 3 of Barcelona, you suffer understeer. So you think about the solutions. What can you do? You can either soften the suspension. You can either the front suspension, obviously. You can either stiffen the rear suspension. You could raise the rear ride height in order to give the rear less grip. You could lower the front ride height in order to give the front more grip. You could push weight around and stuff like that. Let's imagine you just go 2 clicks up on the front wing and that's fixed then. But because you went 2 clicks up on the front wing, that means your rear is very unsettled around the final corner. Your rear is very unsettled around the uphill turn right. That's turn 9, that is. The one where I just found 1/10. And then you start thinking, alright, what can I do to the rear to make it more stable without removing the front wing, because that would bring back the bad balance into turn 3 again. So therefore you could then decrease the rear ride height to increase the rear end grip, or you could soften the rear suspension, or you can take up the rear wing again, but this would equally mean like lowering the front wing, so I wouldn't advise doing that. So I would try to find anything on the setup that conquers the problem. So usually what you do first on the car is set the basics. So you come to a new track, you drive out once in the standard setup, and then you see some issues like too low wings, because you know at Monza you do need low wings. Then you look at the gearing to be good on whatever wings you agree. Then you look at the tire, not tire pressure, the brake pressure. You look at the brake ducts, at the coolings and everything. You just set the basics, which do not change too much on the balance. And as soon as you find the basic configuration for the track in terms of gearing, aero setup, brakes and weight, you're gonna start around working on the suspension. You then tweak the aero one click up or down or two, or you start experimenting whether 5 clicks less on both wings are gonna give you more an advantage. So that's the way you do it, I want to say. I mean, there is no strict plan you need to do, like first do that, then do this. Sometimes you just fiddle in a set and it feels okay, and you go on working on it, twitching it. And sometimes you make a setup in the first step which is really crap, which you can't really race, which has a bad balance, which needs a lot of fixing. So whatever situation you will find in, you then just need to take the adequate actions to get to the level, or to get to the point where you're heading at. And there is no kind of receipt like how to cook stuff or how to cook a perfect setup. All you need to do is, when you have a problem, identify the problem, then understand the problem, and then think what could cause the problem, or think about what could solve the problem, and then you try it. And if the problem is fixed and no other problems occur, then you're fine. If one problem is fixed but other problems occur, you need to think about the new problems again. And as soon as you eliminate like all problems, you're gonna be fine. Like sometimes you're traveling around in circles to find the basic set, and there are some moments where I think like, good God, I was so close as being to the perfect set like 3 or 4 sessions ago, and now I'm just at the very same point again. So that happens sometimes. Sometimes you learn from it. Sometimes you simply don't. What I would advise you guys is to put out a piece of paper, note down what you changed, write down how the car feels to you. Maybe go on the internet, do a little bit of research, and then try different settings, and also write down again what improved, what didn't improve, or what was even worse than. And so you start to learn and get some kind of matrix in your head. If that and that and that, then you do that and that and that. That's basically how I built my setup after 12 years of experience. What do I enjoy the most? Well, probably, fun fact, the most boring races are probably the one that are the most successful for you. Because if you're in pole position and you lead every race straight away from the front, that's probably boring. That means you have done a good work. I had a very fun race around Brazil. I've put up my highlights video on my channel, on my YouTube channel. Lots of overtaking going on, lots of side-by-side battling, even some wheel banging was going on. Very intense and fun racing. So yeah, I mean, of course battling is fun, but it's also satisfying working on a setup and improve 10th by 10th by 10th, just like we do now so far. Like when building an FSR setup, obviously those steps are a lot closer and a lot more difficult to feel or see. Yeah. At ARB about the long runs, that's what I was going to show you right now coming up. As I want to now finally adjust the brake bias at first. Take down a little bit more camber. Weight distribution was fine to me. I think another click would improve even more. And then I would only suggest going lower on the packers at the front and at the rear. And then go like that. Put in a final try before we then look at setting. Oops. Setting up a pit stop. In order to go for a long run, which I then will put it on 100 liters or something. And then I can tell you also a little bit about how I practice for long runs. At Sure Gamer, that really depends. On some tracks you have it done quite fast. Like I had the race in Brazil. The Brazil race was this kind of race where I just hopped in the car, did a little bit of tweaks and worked together with my engineer, and we were done pretty much after like 3 or 4 hours, after like 80 or 90 laps. And then I remember at Manicure in the mid-season, where I've done like 750 laps, not going anywhere, and suddenly it went boom. Whoa. And suddenly it went boom, and the car balance was there, the confidence was there, everything was just where I would have needed it. And yeah, it sometimes really depends. That's not too bad of a lap for warming up the tires still.
The lap was a 1:23.91.
Oh. Was a little bit too wide out of turn 4. Lost like 3.5 tenths. The car's too stiff in the back now, and I do think I be able to fix that though. But I need to go back to the pits before going into that long run. Which then means we do a little bit of time attack before doing a tiny little long run. And then at the end of this session, low fuel the car and put in 1 or 2 qualifying attempts. Like, just go hard. Packers needs to be removed at 0.5, and with the rear being too twitchy, I want to have increased performance on the diffuser. And a little bit softer rear anti-roll bar, so the car rolls a little bit more. Apart from that, I'm absolutely fine with the setup. I'm just gonna reduce that to 20 so it doesn't fuel up the car too hard. Yeah. Yeah, I think meanwhile the car is very much to my liking. I haven't looked into differential yet, but I might be doing an own episode for differential settings, since they are very complex. In the end, very easy to use once you understood them, and very important also. Thank you, Steam King, for being around. Happy you joined us. Enjoy yourself. Have a nice evening. Good night, and thank you very much for watching. Yeah, the car's not as twitchy as it has been into the final corner, which is perfect. DGVI, no, the Packers are set there where the third spring, and left side is the front and the right side is the rear. There is no separation between left and right in this setting. So, still being in the warm-up lap, quite yet we are on pace. Car is feeling very good, got really a lot of confidence into it, hence why I'm going quicker than before, while still being on the warm-up lap there. I was a little bit too impatient there. Still we ditch into the waters with a 123.9, and now let's see what this setup could be giving to us. So we improve out another close to 3/10, pulling in a 123.5. Now requesting pit stop for putting in 100 liters, which will be plus 23 in the end. Go on the prime tire and then go for a little long run, and then I will tell you how I in the end would improve the setup after doing the long run. As finally Sean Cole has joined the party. Hey Sean, hope you're feeling alright after yesterday's show. Was fun to watch though. Not sure if you got too much fun today. Right, so we're going with that, and now we got like 100 liters on board, and we'll ditch into a little long run. Before then I would tell you what I would change on the setup due to the results on it. Right, the car on 100 liter is very heavy. Anyway, after we set on a series of lap times on the 123s, we're now a little bit more fuel on board, which means we're a little bit more heavy. So we're currently looking at doing consistently low 24s or 23 highs. Starting the stint right now. That means obviously we do not push the car to its complete limits. But we wanna go on the long play game, so we try to drive it very precisely, like we would race it in or drive it in a race. Yeah, Tom, I think it's some kind of German thing. To be like an engineer in a room of toddlers. Probably standard procedure. Right, so we finish our first lap. 24.3, maybe a little bit too slow, but we now are currently constantly looking at tire percentages in the top right. Now we want to see them being as equal as possible, or if not, the front to wear out a little faster than the rear. So that will keep a nice balance in the car then. But anyway, the 24.3 probably being very slow at the minute because of low tire temperature. I mean, I didn't push the car too hard in the opening lap, so I still think there is room for improvement. I also feel that the first gear is a little bit too short, hitting the power too early out of the hairpin. Can't fix that right now, but that's not necessary as well, because with a heavy car it's probably just about right, but I will be sure as soon as the car becomes lighter. That might etching out an issue. Now setting a 124.1. Yeah, and as far as I can see, you're in good hands with Sean at the minute. Loads of messages popping up here. Sorry Albuco, what you mean in 20 minutes? After a 124.1, coming down in a 124.2. Whoa. That went well. Put it into neutral, go back. Right. Well, this probably will look bad on the stint in the end anyway. Looking at the tires after 5 consecutive laps here around Spain, we see that the left hand side is being the problem side of the tires, but we also see that the front and the front and the rear tire both wear at the same rate. So after 5 laps, both will have lost 11%, as they're currently running both at 89, which therefore points that with the current balance we do have the equal tire wear at the front and the rear, and so we just can go on and see how long our tires will last. Little note, I can tell you right now, we don't do this. We don't want to do this towards the end of the session. We will stop this in like 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and then fuel down for one qualifying attempt before then ending this episode of the setup guide around Spain. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to still ask them to me. While being driving and need a focus a little bit, I hope still I can answer them. Otherwise, feel free to ask those questions in the subscription. Ask those questions on my channel, on my Facebook account. Ask them wherever you find me. I will surely reply to you. But most probably you want to put them below in the comments, and I can ask them right there, so they stay with a relevant and theoretical content. Right, after our last valid lap has been a 124.223, we now come in a 124.253. Currently I'm using the prime compound, which is definitely made for the long game, and it gets faster throughout the stint once your tank starts to empty up. It's not the fastest tire though, but definitely the most consistent, and it's perfect for this track around here because Barcelona really puts a lot of stress and load to the tires. So the prime tire is definitely the tire you want to use here, which does not necessarily mean that it's faster than the option. Really have to make a good strategy call and make the strategy work. For those guys being interested in how hard it is to race with that car, visit www.formula-simracing.net and check out the racing threads for 2017 season. Then you will find the links to all relevant content. After our 124.2, we set in a 124.3. Tires on the left hand side still wearing at the same rate, which is great. Only points to the fact that our setup is in a very good balance the way we drive it. Coming in for another 24.1, and now you can really feel the car becoming faster, because we started with 100 liters in our tank, and after a few laps we're already down to 73. So you will soon start be seeing 24 zeros, before then getting into the 23s. Maybe we go direct into the 23s, could be possible as well. It depends. Mostly I'm racing just open wheelers or Formula 1 cars because I like them the most. But I also like driving the new GT3 pack from rFactor 2 with the Mercedes and the McLaren. Obviously, world fastest gamer was the McLaren GT3 car.
The lap was a 1.
Yeah, Sean is right.
Point one.
I'm mainly and definitely an F1 guy. So we finished this lap being a 1:24.022, the fastest of the stint. Anyway, we've reached the 9-minute border of this practice session, which then means we pull in 10 liters of fuel and go and give it 2 qualification runs. To unleash the full performance of the car. So what you usually do now is, after we've done some laps on race fuel, you could take this data to Motec and evaluate the average tire usage per lap, evaluate the average fuel usage per lap, fill in a sheet and start doing calculations. And you do the same with the option tire or any other tire available you want to use. And from then on, you just start to create a sheet or a calculation of what does work and what does not work. So before all that's going on, I just have a look at the stint data. Be really sure that it's useful to use. Thank you, John. You're really joking about me, I know, about the robot thing. However, we have a quick look at the stint we just did. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 laps, including the in-lap. We don't want to look at this lap here because of the spin. Otherwise, we did a 24.3, 0.1, 0.2, 0.2, 0.3, 0.1, 0.1, 0.0. So here you can see, despite the tire going off a little bit and yeah, losing out life and performance, you still go faster and faster and faster. Which is nice. In the option it would have been the other way around. In the option you would have probably started the stint with a 23.8 and a 24.1 and then you dropped into the 2, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then you go slower and slower lap by lap. But here it's actually nice, so everyone was in the 40 and the 24s, apart from the spin. All the laps have been within a range from about 3/10, so you can call this consistent. So you can really make use of this this set of data for analysis into Motec. And yeah, if you drive it like this in the race, you will find out that your testing would have been very valid to be used in the race. On what you can do with Motec and how you can make use of that data, I might do a separate show of that. Which will come late into the year, if not in 2018. Since I would like to draw a few examples and put them together and try to really evaluate the use of Motec what can be the benefit of using it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do here for you guys on the SimPit channel. Yes, El Bujo, I'm having the F1 manager. I'm running Avid Chronic Racing there, obviously, since I'm manager of the SimRacing team here in rFactor 2 and everywhere else. So definitely I run it the same name on F1 manager. It's the most complex and the most exciting manager game I've ever played. Definitely love it. El Buco, you might wanna see my private Facebook, not the branding channel, but the private one. I can show you a picture of me engineering for WC guys, and you will, and I hope you will be attached with a seat belt to your seat, because you will have glowing eyes, I'm sure. As I'm now trying to punish and push this car for a qualifying lap around the circuit. That is when you really see the balance of the car, and it's just perfect through turn 3, everything flat out.
The lap was a 1:21.21.
Right, so this was one qualifying attempt. Yet I'm quickly boxing to pull on another set of tires and put on another lap. Which then hopefully will be a little bit faster. What you mean by sim vibe mix, Nutrella? I've sadly no clue what you're on about that. So let's go in for a quick pit stop so we can pull in a lap. El Bujo, it like literally took me 12 years to learn all that stuff. You don't simply learn it from doing it once or twice. You're learning from exploring, experimenting, trying out for yourself. Play with the settings. As I said, take a piece of paper, note down what you feel, note down what you change, and then note down what the changes were worth to you. And then you start to develop a specific knowledge for one particular car or a series of cars. That's how I learned it. Of course, reading and do research on the internet helps as well. As we got 30 seconds left in the session, so maybe we can pull out an even better qualifying attempt, ditch into the 20s. Would be great. And there we go. As we come around final corner to put in a 120.75. So between 100 liters, no sorry, between 90 liters and primes and 10 liters an option, we do have a time difference from 2.8 seconds. I think we did this 123.5 with a prime in 90 liters. So that will also contribute to you building your race strategy. You really have to know what's the time delta on the prime to the option or to any other compound available. What's the time delta of 10 kilogram put into fuel. So a lot of stuff going on there, which you need to have a look at. And yeah, that's one episode of how to build a race set. Of course, you can go on and on and on and start fiddling around with damper settings, of which I do not know too much, if not anything, or nothing. So yeah, dampers, I would still need some lessons on there. So we come back into the pits. To finally park the car for today. And that's it for today, guys. So I would just want to scroll through some kind of action and try to answer some questions. You guys currently got a lot of questions here. I'm totally free to read and answer them while you just see me racing in the car there. Yes, before dampers you some kind needs of Motec. Sadly though, I have really no idea how to make use of it or how to read out that stuff from Motec there. As I said, that would be the option or the knowledge I'm still missing, and I would need some research on it. yeah, those prime tires really been able to handle a massive load. I mean, you see the car drifting a little bit. Albusho, sure. Feel free to contact me on Facebook on my social media channel. I think I put the link in the description already. Feel free to contact me there. Join me, ask me questions. Feel free to catch up with me. Yeah, I mean, there's lots to explore in sim racing, and there's even more to come. You can't, even with me racing every day a little bit, you can't oversee everything that's going on there at the minute. So yeah, very much to talk about, I have to say. So sim racing Rick, you asked me about my tire temperature peaks at 160, 170. If you remember the thermal cameras F1 has put up on the cars in around 2012 or 2013, when going through those corners, the tire is getting really hot and lit and everything. But as soon as the friction is being removed and the tire is being the corner has been driven through, the tire starts to cool down and then has its actual temperature. So those peaks of 170 or 160 degrees is just on the surface, or close to the surface, and only for very short time. Of course it's a little bit high, you don't want to have it that high, but on one lap you don't really care, and on the and when you go on the long run, you actually have to look for it a little bit. So when being on the long run, you always be like 95 or 90% of the car's limits in order to keep tires in a condition. You're always able to get the 5% extra required to overtake or defend. So that's really what your driving like should be. Hey Inyafas, nice to see you again here. Hope you enjoyed what I'm doing. The virtual reality on sim racing. Generally, I don't really like it. With being in a fixed chair, having virtual reality glasses on, the driving feels unnatural to me. On the Sim Racing Expo, I had the chance to have a ride in the ImSim simulator with the virtual reality glasses fixed, and that rig obviously was a bit of a motion rig, which was good. In a motion rig, I really can tell you that VR is a nice thing to have, but for standard racing, like I would do it here, I am quite sure I would feel getting sick quite soon, because the head and the eyes and the ears, everything's gonna get that shaking, and you feel like everything is shaking around you when going over bumps or over curbs, whereas your body's still not shaking at all. And in a motion rig, that probably would have been simulated, which therefore feels a lot better, I think. So virtual reality, we need to wait for the next generation virtual reality glasses because of the resolution. I think that needs to be fixed still. Apart from that, I think in combination with a motion rig, it's quite a nice experience. But I don't think it will make you faster. I think it will make you slower, because it will, if not perfectly timed together with the motion, will give you a bad feedback, or yeah, bad feedback consistency. And feedback is everything you need when doing sim racing, because you actually do not sit in the car. So as Nutrella Bra said, the next generation will be ready, and I think that's it. Thank you, Sim Racing Rick, for your charming words. I saw people suggesting raising tire pressures on this mod. It's common sense, or it's known that the lowest tire pressure is the fastest, because the contact patch of rFactor 2 together with those tires do not really simulate the perfect and the completely right effect of tire pressures, especially when heating up. So the lowest one definitely gives the more grip, hence why I'm using it that low. So you guys need to definitely tell me about the sim vibe thing. Is it for the force feedback or something? Because that definitely needs some improvement on that G29, especially when racing for rFactor 2. Thank you, that's great feedback from you guys. And yeah, SimRacing Rick, you just said about the high temperatures. That's absolutely right. You can't keep them as that high for long, otherwise your tires will melt. In every tire physics data, so those tires obviously are modelized by physics data, and there's two kind of tire wear. The one is tire wear by friction, and the other one is thermal degradation or thermal tire degradation. So once you hit a specific amount of temperature, let's say 160 degrees, for the period over 160 degrees, your tire wear is like twice the time or something. So there's a multiplier in behind that punishes you for running too high tire temperatures. But you can analyze that on either Motec or Carstat or something. So yeah, lots of research needs to be done on rFactor 2 to completely understand the most efficient points or parts of the car. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we now got 3:14 AM, which is pi. Fun fact. So, as I'm gonna need to get up in like 3.5 hours, I would very much like to end the stream at this point. The current car in Jaffa, sorry, that's the Formula 1 2017 SimRacing. Sorry, not Formula 1, it's a Formula SimRacing 2017 car. I'm quite fatigued now, I'm tired. This is actually my race car. I raced in that for the entire season. As you can see, it's a special livery for myself with my personal helmet and stuff. Exactly, Tom, that was the number I was about. Yeah, and you can maybe still get it from Formula SimRacing forums visiting www.formula-simracing.net. Click through the race threads throughout the forum and have a look on get all tracks and mods here, and then it's the FSR car version 1.06. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would appreciate to see you again on either an F1 2017 career mode story on the next episode of building a car setup or whatever stream I'm gonna do. I will be more active on this channel here as well, the Sim Pit. Again, Sean Cole, thank you very much for introducing me, for making me a contributor to your show. I really appreciate working with you. And yeah, since Sean is around here as well, that's why I can only say thank you very much. And I hope you guys have a nice evening so far. Have a good night, sleep well. I'm Michi Hoyer from Avid Chronic Racing, and I was live for the Sim Pit here. And we see you guys out on track.